want a second look.
Yeah, there's something about this one, isn't there? Familiar somehow.
We think we're stuck in a specific fragment in time, and we've been repeating that same fragment over and over again.
But the flirting's over, Sherlock. Daddy's had enough now.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, TV reviews of Connections in Mind. Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. has dropped its 7th and final season this year, airing from the end of May to the middle of August of 2020. And this season, this final season picks up pretty much right where season 6 left off. There's an alien race known as the Chronicoms who were mentioned a bunch in the previous season. Enoch is a member of that species who has befriended Fitz and Simmons and the team and has joined the S.h.i.e.L.D. team. However, the Chronicoms, and especially the hunters of the Chronicoms, having their homeworld destroyed, they now determined to make Earth their home world. However, the S.h.i.e.L.D. team is in the way and they are trying to stop them. And the Chronicoms determined that in order to prepare Earth for their arrival, is better if S.h.i.E.L.D. never existed. And so they set off to try and destroy S.h.i.E.L.D. in its past. And so the S.h.i.E.L.D. team follows the Chronicoms back in time, starting from the 1930s in New York, and they follow the Chronicoms forward and forward in time, and attempting to prevent the Chronicoms from altering the timeline, preserving S.h.i.E.L.D. history as best they can, while at the same time trying to prevent the Chronicoms from destroying Earth in the process, trying to preserve the timeline. However, as the team finds out, there's certain things that they just can't prevent, and there's certain things like it or not, one way or another, this will be their final mission as a team. So this season, I'll get into some my spoiler-free thoughts on the season if you haven't seen any of the episodes before. If you'd like to see my reactions on each and every episode of this season as soon as they came out and my spoiler thoughts on those, you can check out those videos on my channel. But first, some spoiler-free general thoughts on this season. I mean, I've been a fan of Agents of S.h.i.E.L.D. since the very beginning. They've had some high points, they've had some low points, just as any show does. I think that this is definitely a season where, I mean, it's a fairly uncommon thing for a show to be able to write, be able to know that the end is coming and therefore write a satisfying conclusion where they try to tie up all the loose ends and leave the characters in more or less a good place and leave their the show's fans in a feeling good and feeling that their journey all this time has been worth it. I say uncommon because often a ending is not a guarantee. There are plenty of examples of shows that leave a tantalizing cliffhanger only to have the show canceled, and then it's like, what are you going to do? I point to Timeless as an example, and we'll get into that in a little bit as well, as a example of a show that got canceled with a whole thing's leaving up into the air, and took an awful lot of fan complaints in order to get the conclusion that we got. So, like I said, it's not a given that a show can make a conclusion. As far as a concluding season goes, I think this worked out rather well. I think this season wrapped up a whole lot of storylines in the series. It gave some necessary closure to some characters. It gave some hope to other characters. I especially think that the strongest arc of this entire series, and I think the one that my favorite of the series was Daisy's arc, played by Chloe Bennett. Her journey from the rogue cyber hacker who doesn't even know her real name, so she just goes by Skye, to being adopted by the S.h.i.E.L.D. family, to having any sense of order that she had, that she was starting to get to, a sense of family, get ripped out from under her when S.h.i.E.L.D. collapses. trying to find her way in the world, finds out she's more than what she thinks she is, gaining her inhuman powers, becoming Quake, having to deal with tragedy from losing people in her life, and figuring out how to gain people in her life, how to prevent more loss, how to cope with that. I think in this season especially, I think it put her in a place where I think that she's found peace with herself. She's grown as a character. I think that they did the best service with them. Also, the storyline with Fitz and Simmons, the predominant will they, won't they, or how will they get together of the series. We saw them get married in the previous season, and of course, things didn't quite work out for them. And the things kept getting caught in the way. Again, no spoilers just yet, but I think that also was a satisfying conclusion, though I wish more time was spent on it. I think I wish that they had spent more time with giving that. But then again, we've had other seasons develop more their character a little bit more, so I think that they can sort of get away with that. The time hopping elements of this series were fantastic. I loved the set pieces. I liked the fact that in interviews with the cast and crew of the show, they lamented the fact that because of budgets, they were oftentimes limited to just dark hallways, and that they didn't like to, they were kind of uncomfortable shooting on that for long periods of time, and they wanted something more for the show. And this time they actually get to go outside. They get to see 1930s New York, 1950s the Nevada desert, the 1970s New York, the 1980s in River's End, I believe is where the lighthouse is. You get to see all these different time players, and the cast they're just having fun, and I think that's the key to why this season is great, in the fact that a show works best when they can let themselves loose a little bit. They can take things seriously, but not too seriously, and they're just having fun in different scenarios and pairing characters off. Like one episode in particular pairs off Deke and Mac, and in the past, they've shown that they don't necessarily get along very well, but then they're thrust together and they have some great chemistry after a while. And that's a great episode. That's one of my favorites of this season. And like the great character work in this is just fantastic. The sets are great. I love the period pieces. My only great complaint about this series, this season in particular, is that leading up to the finale, this season had a time jumping thing where they would spend 1 or 2 episodes in one particular time frame, and then jump forward to another decade or new time frame, and then jump forward, and then keep doing that. Near the end, in order to set up set the stage for the grand finale, the 2-part series finale, they kind of lingered for a little bit too long, in my opinion, having to set up, put the chess pieces in place in order to set the stage for the final action, the final confrontations. I just thought that, I think it was like 2 or 3 episodes leading into the final 2-parter series finale, and I think that was probably an episode too long, lingering and setting that up. I think all the events had to happen for sure, but I think given the pacing of it that we had already established in the earlier part of the season, the fun time jumping, then it probably took a little bit too long to do that. But other than that, I would say that the series finale, again, no spoilers quite yet, but that brought a little tear to my eye. I'm not gonna lie. It was nice to see those characters again. So I really think that was an effective conclusion to this series. So yeah, that's what more can I say about the series? I'm going to be going into a series overview of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. in another video where I'm going to give my definitive my personal rankings of the series of the seasons 1 through 7, and which I think is the from worst to best, and just to give a preview for that, where I think this season ranks with the other seasons. It's definitely in the top half, and I wouldn't say it's my favorite of the series, but it's definitely up there. It had some of my most favorite episodes, especially the when they get to the 1980s. That is definitely one of my favorite episodes. So overall, I would say good job. If you're a fan of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., but you early on or but you kind of dropped off on it, I recommend catching up and tuning into the and watching this final season. It is definitely worth it. Especially just for the characters along the way. So now that we've gotten into our spoiler-free thoughts on the season, now I'm going to get into some spoiler-filled analysis of the season. What I thought worked, what I thought didn't work, as far as specific plot developments, and some overall thoughts as to familiarities as far as plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you and where you may have seen them before. So to get this out of the way, the fact that this is a time jumping thing, and the fact that they have to go back into their own past or the past of S.h.i.e.L.D. in order to counter an alien threat and restore the timeline, save the people of Earth from this alien threat, and eventually one person has to sacrifice. There's the potential for sacrifice, potential for them failing. It's fairly obvious, especially in the latter half of this season, that this was meant to be the Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. version of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, where the Infinity War part happens near the right before the series finale, where the team finds out that their efforts have been in vain. Their enemy seems to be stronger than ever, that they have failed, they have not preserved the timeline, and the Chronicoms are laying waste to S.h.i.E.L.D. installations. They're preparing to invade Earth. It seems like all hope is lost. They've failed. What are they going to do? And then by the end, they pull it out. It turns out that it is an alternate timeline, it is part of the multiverse. Their original timeline is in fact still okay, but they still have to go back and defeat the Chronicoms, so they do. And then once that happens, the team splits off and go the separate ways. It's fairly obvious that the Infinity War Endgame parallels in the season were there, and I think as a formula that works. It worked for the Avengers and it works here. But I think also, especially in the beginning half of this season, there's as I mentioned before, Timeless is also a series where our core team of heroes has to follow a time traveling evil force and go back in time and not blend in with the past, so that they don't affect the timeline too greatly. Have to seek out historical figures in that timeline. Of course, in Timeless, it is actual historical figures. In Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., it's historical figures within the history of S.h.i.e.L.D., but they're trying to prevent the evil force, in this case the Chronicoms, from altering the timeline to suit their needs, and the heroes are trying to preserve the timeline as they know it, for good or evil, especially when they have to resist the temptation to get rid of evil people or people who are going to be evil in the future, to spare suffering. But then they'll go back to the future and find a future where that will look totally different from them, or may even be worse. Who knows? So there's a definite parallel between this last season of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. and the series Timeless. I think those are my main points of comparison. I say in my reaction series within each individual episode, what I think each episode seems familiar and where you've seen them before, episode by episode. But I think overall as a series, those are my main points of comparison. And as far as spoiler analysis as to what I think works and what I think doesn't work about this season. Like I said, I think the character arcs work great. I think it works best when they're pairing off characters that don't necessarily get paired off often, such as May and Yo-Yo, Mac and Deke. Bringing in Agent Sousa was a stroke of genius, I think. Agent Carter getting canceled early was a travesty, in my opinion. I want more Agent Carter, but I'll take just a little bit more of Agent Sousa any day. And I think the pairing off of him and Daisy, I was hesitant. Go back and see my reactions, but I was hesitant at first. I wasn't sure if it was going to work. But by the end, I think they brought me around. They convinced me, and I think it works great with her character, especially the fact that she's gone through so much loss, and she tends to, as had been stated in seasons past, that everyone she gets close to ends up dying, such as Lincoln, such as her mother, such as her father, such as Coulson, repeatedly. So there's definitely a lot of loss there, and I think he helps to bring her some peace, bring her some shared life experience. He's definitely lost some people in his time being a soldier, so I think that works great. And as I said before, I wish that the Fitzsimmons ending, it worked out well, and their daughter is adorable. The young actress that they brought in for that is adorable, but I wish that that Fitz hadn't come back a little earlier rather than the last episode of the series. I feel like that was like, I mean, I think there was a scheduling conflict with Ian DeCastrecker, so that's the real reason why. But as a narrative story, I wish we would have seen him a little bit earlier in the series, or at least hints about that. So there's that. And like I said, the Chronicoms, they're threatening villains, but they're kind of one-dimensional villains, and spending too much time with a one-dimensional villain can be a problem, I think. And especially with the Chronicoms in general, I feel like in the beginning of the series, or the season, especially even in the end of season 6, the Chronicoms are formidable threats. Like, they are like very hard to kill. They're so far ahead of us technologically, and they seem to know what we're gonna do before we even think about it because they're in our minds. But by the end of the season, they seem almost a little too easy to kill. I think that's a narrative thing where it's like you can't dwell too much on how they're going to overcome the enemy. They just kind of have to move the story along. But I think that's a similar problem to what happened to the Wraith and the Goa'uld in Stargate, where they were very formidable villains, and even though they develop countermeasures to their abilities and they gain stronger weapons to defeat them, by the end they're not that much of a threat anymore, and then it kind of loses its potency after a while. So I think that's a common issue with these kinds of villains in sci-fi series. So this season has it too. But overall, these are fairly minor nitpicks in my opinion. This is just such a great season, and I'm sad to see Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. end, but as far as endings go, this is definitely a satisfying way to go out. So, if you watched Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. this last season, what did you think of the season? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did I miss something? I may have missed something. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to tune in next, where I'll be doing, as I said, a complete series overview of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., where I'll give my definitive rankings of the series, as well as, now that the theaters are open and we can, so far so good as far as theaters being open in the United States, at least as far as where I'm at in the United States, I'll be giving you a review of The New Mutants next, which comes out August 28th. I'll be giving my review of that weekend, and also have early tickets to Tenet. Those reviews will be coming out. Finally, we're getting new movies again. I can't wait to bring those reviews to you. Again, thank you so much for watching. You guys are the best. But just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.